Well, we know who the biggest loser of Super Bowl 48 was after Peyton Manning and his Denver Broncos got shellacked by the Seattle Seahawks. But for a slightly different take on all the winners and losers from last night's blowout in the Jersey Meadowlands, we turn to Chris Malone, a founder and managing partner at Fidelum Partners and author of the book, The Human Brand. Chris, thanks for coming in. Glad to see you.
Paul.
You guys do an interesting thing where you kind of look at brand loyalty, brand familiarity before and after the game. Let's talk first about some of these ads. Without a doubt, down Super Bowl for the Broncos, down year for ads. I mean, not a lot of very good ads. How did the whole thing shake out?
Yeah, actually, we're seeing the same thing, that the game was disappointing, but the ads were equally disappointing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of clutter out there, 60 or 70 different ads aired during the broadcast. It's very difficult for them to break through the clutter, and very few actually move the needle in terms of consumer perception and loyalty to brands.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a couple that did move the needle. Butterfinger, you think was Butterfinger a big mover?
Not so much a mover. They moved a couple of points. They started with a high awareness, obviously, and pretty good loyalty overall. They moved a couple of points in loyalty, but what we saw actually was Chobani saw an 11-point gain from their Super Bowl spot, and that's rare. They are starting from a much lower base, but a lot of these new advertisers, whether it's Chobani or Beats or SodaStream, that's what they're looking for. They're looking to introduce themselves to a new audience. Some of them hit, some of them missed.
Let's talk about this Coca-Cola ad, because a big brand, they don't need to do Super Bowl ads, but they do. And the one they did last night, where they have people singing America the Beautiful in a number of different languages, it really struck a nerve with people. Whether you like it or not, I personally thought it was brilliant, but it struck a nerve, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And you know, I think the difference in terms of how people responded to that was a lot of the context. That's a very common approach about global unity and how Coca-Cola brings people together, is what you'll hear from them during the Sochi Olympics. It's very consistent with what the Olympics are about. The Super Bowl is a very different kind of event. It's about winning and losing. It's about passion. It's about the outcome of the game. And I think that it really landed strangely for people, given what they expected from Coca-Cola.
Now, I also want to talk about, let's get to some of the individuals, right? Because it's one thing to talk about, let's talk about some of the individuals, some of the people whose names went up and down during this Super Bowl. Who had the biggest rise? Let's start with the winners.
Yeah, well, it's a good question in the sense that every year that the Super Bowl is not just the mother of all sporting events; it's also the birth mother of a lot of new household names. And so this year it was actually Russell Wilson that actually bumped the needle the most, despite
Seattle Seahawks quarterback.
Exactly. Despite that he did not win the game MVP, he was actually the biggest beneficiary of last night's performance, whereas Peyton Manning, not surprisingly, took the biggest hit. And by the end of the game, Wilson had pretty much the same level of admiration as fans had for Manning.
Talk to me for a second about Malcolm Smith, a defensive player for Seattle, returned an interception for a touchdown. I don't think most people even knew who this guy was until he caught that pass. His name went up a lot, didn't it?
It went up about 15 points, but I think that we didn't have a before measure for him because nobody knew that he was going to be exactly. We didn't have him in the pre-measures, but I think it's fair to say that most people would not know who he was, and I think even after he's been introduced as the MVP, still only about 15% of the U.S. population said they were familiar with Malcolm Smith.
He did get a sweet pickup truck, though.
Yes.
Now, look, Peyton Manning does a ton of ads. We all know that. His name is out there. For some of these guys, for a Russell Wilson, for a Malcolm Smith, how big a game is this in terms of that?
For a Malcolm Smith, I think it's going to parlay into some real opportunities for him in the Seattle Northwest area. But beyond that, it's going to be difficult to see him as a linebacker kind of really breaking out further than that. Russell Wilson, though, is a rising star. He could be your next Tom Brady. He could be your next Ben Roethlisberger. And I think we're just seeing the beginning of his rise as not only a performer, but also as an endorser.
All right, Chris Malone, Fidelum Partners. Excellent. Thanks for coming in today, Sharon. Appreciate it.